Go. Hello and welcome to the Freemasons podcast with your host, Right Worship Brother George Marjorie. I am up here solo today. I want to apologize to our listeners for not going live for a while because Joe is preparing for a marathon he's going to be doing. So he's practicing that. Ken is, I don't know, fixing his motherboard or whatever the hell he's doing. And I have been, I'm going for a job with the Department of Homeland Security, so I have been in training. So it has been extremely difficult to get up there. No sound. What do you mean no sound? Are you kidding me? Hello. Sound. See, there's no sound. I'm trying to find that. Come out of the soundboard. Is there sound? Is he messing with me? He's fucking with me, isn't he? All right. I'm going to continue the 10th tablet. Joseph Schultz, if you're messing with me, please let me know because I'm the only one up here, so there's sound. That's what I thought. Son of a bitch. He got me. All right. That's very nicely done. Very nicely done. In the comment section, Joseph Schultz said there's no sound yet, and there was clearly sound. So, very nicely done. Very nicely done. So, we're going to be covering the Lost Book of Enki, and I'm going to continue on with Tablet 10. The very last place that we left off is we left off where they were waiting for the deluge to happen. And this is the account of how the deluge, the great flood, swept over the earth, and how the Anunnaki escaped, and how Zizidra in a boat survived. If you remember correctly, the last time that we were going over this, it was Zizidra, who is, in a sense, Noah. He was told by Enki, not told by him, but again, Enki was talking to the reed hut. He was talking to the wall because he was forbidden from telling him that the flood was coming because Enlil wanted humanity or mankind to perish completely in the flood. So he went to the side of the reed hut and he told the reed hut to build a boat and get his family members in there. You know that another character in here said that they were going to save all the life essences or seeds of the animals that were inhabited on Earth. And stuck him in the boat with him. So let's continue on here. For days before the day of the deluge, the earth was rumbling, groans as with pain it did. For nights before the calamity struck, in the heavens Nibiru as a glowing star was seen. Then there was darkness at daytime, and the night and the moon, though by a monster, was swallowed. Interesting thing about this is in the Bible there's actually a story about this, and I can't, my Bible is, I'm a little rusty on the Bible, but one of the prophets had said that when the day of the Lord was coming, all of the stars and the moon would be blotted out. So I find that quite interesting. Then there was darkness in daytime. The earth began to shake by a net force before unknown it was agitated. It's gravity. In the glow of the dawn, a black cloud arose from the horizon. The morning's light to darkness changed, as though by death's shadow veiled. Then the sound of rolling thunder boomed. Lightnings, the skies lit up. Depart, depart. Utu to the Anunnaki gave the signal. Crouched in the boats of heaven, the Anunnaki heavenward were lofted. So they're hauling ass. They're getting the hell out of Dodge. In Shurabak, 18 leagues away, the bright eruptions by Ningal were seen. Bottom up, button up the hatch, Ningal to Zizidra shouted. Together, the trapdoor that the hatch concealed, they pulled down. Watertight and closed completely was the boat. Inside, not a ray of light penetrated. Again, we're talking about, in a sense, Noah's boat here. Oh, 1 second. All right, cool. On that day, on that unforgettable day, the deluge with a roar began. In the White Land, at Earth's bottom, the Earth's foundations were shaking. White Land. It'll be snow-covered Antarctica. Then with a roar to thousand thunders equal, off its foundations the ice sheet slipped. By Nibiru's unseen net force it was pulled away, into the South Sea crashing. The sheet of ice onto another ice sheet was smashing. The white land surface like broken eggshell was crumbling. All at once a tidal wave rose. The very skies was the wall of waters reaching. A storm, its ferocity never seen before, at Earth's bottom began to howl. Its winds, the wall of water were driving. The tidal wave northward was spreading. Northward was the wall of waters onrushing. The Abzu lands it was reaching. Abzu. I'm surmising that is southern Africa. Therefrom, toward the settled lands it traveled. The Eden it overwhelmed. We're talking about the Middle East. When the tidal wave, the wall of waters, Shurabak reached, the boat of Zizidra, the tidal wave from its moorings lifted. So the boat that Zizidra had made, Noah's boat, it lifted it off the ground, tossed it about like a watery abyss, the boat it swallowed. Though completely submerged, the boat held firm. Not a drop of water did it enter. Outside the storm's wave, the people overtook like a killing in battle. In other words, the wave just mashed the hell out of everybody. No one his fellow man could see. The ground vanished. There was only water. All at once the ground stood by the mighty waters. Away was swept. Before day's end, the watery wall, gathering speed, the mountains it overwhelmed. In celestial boats, the Anunnaki, the earth, were circling. Crowding the compartments, against the outer walls they crouched. What was happening upon the earth down below to see they strained. From the celestial boat in which she was, Ninmah, like a woman in travail, cried out. My created, like drowned dragonflies in the pond the waters fill. All life by the rolling sea wave was taken. Thus did Ninmah cry and moan. Inanna, who was with her, also cried and lamented. Everything down below, all that lived, has turned into clay. Thus did Ninmah and Inanna weep. They wept and eased their feelings. In the other celestial boats, the Anunnaki, by the sight of unbridled fury, were humbled. The power greater than theirs, they with awe those days witnessed. For the fruits of earth they hungered, for fermented elixir they thirsted. The olden days, alas, to clay have turned. So to each other the Anunnaki said, after the immense tidal wave that swept over the earth, the solstice of heaven opened. A downpour from the skies upon the earth was unleashed. For 7 days the water from above with waters from the great below were mingled. Then the wall of water, its limits reaching, the onslaught ceased. But the rains from the skies for 40 more days and nights continued. Interesting. And there you go. You got your 40 days and 40 nights thing. It's something that's over and over and over again. Joseph Schultz, I wonder how many flood stories exist across the world. Almost every major religion has a flood story, including the Mahabharata, which is in India, Buddhism. There's some form of a flood story. And this when I read this book, this chapter really got me, because you can almost put yourself in the Anunnaki shoes and imagine just looking from not even a spaceship. Let's say we're in a helicopter or a plane and looking down and seeing this happen. I mean, it's there's a movie that's on TV. I think I talked about it last time I was in here, but it's called oh God, I can't remember. It's on Netflix, but it's basically about the flood that happened in Indonesia. And just the power of that wave that wiped out that entire area, it's insane. You can almost feel the tenseness and the pain in the story. We don't we all have a flood story? Yeah, every major religion has a form of a flood story, of some sort. And actually, this has also been proven that there actually was a major flood. There was actually multiple major floods, but when they have, when scientists have gone to Antarctica and they've cut away chunks of ice, because they do samples of ice, They can actually see where there was different types of style. And I'm not a scientist, so Ken will tell you more. But the different layers of the ice, you could actually see that some major event occurred that pretty much wiped out everything on the planet. Let's continue on here. From their perches, the Anunnaki looked down. Where there were dry lands, now was a sea of water. Where mountains once to the heavens their peaks raised, their tops now like islands were the waters. And all that on dry lands was living, in an avalanche of waters perished. Then, as in the beginning, the waters to their basins were gathered, waving back and forth day by day, the water level came lower. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I mean, verbatim in Indonesia when that flood happened, or the tsunami happened, because it took a while for the water to recede, but eventually the water receded out of dry land and back to the ocean. So what they're giving you an account of what happened. Yeah, the water went all the way up to the mountains, and as it slowly started to recede, it drew back. You could start to see more and more. Then 40 days after the deluge over the earth swept, the rains also stopped. After the 40 days, Zudra, the boat's hatch opened, his whereabouts to survey. A bright day it was. A gentle breeze was blowing. I believe this is in the Bible too, in the story of Noah as well, where he let a raven go out of the boat to try to find, waiting for the bird to come back. So again, here you go, same story, different religion, older text, because again, these were all on Sumerian cuneiform tablets and everything. This is where it comes from, right here. This is right where religions of modern day have pulled the stories from. Just on another side note, just talking about the 40 days and 40 nights thing. It's repetitive in the Bible. It's repetitive over and over and over again. And here you go. This is your 40 days and 40 nights. All alone with no other sign of life, the boat upon a vast sea was lolling. Mankind, all living things off the earth's face were wiped out. No one except a few of us survived, but there was no dry land to set a foot upon. So did Sazudra to his kinfolk, family, say as he sat down and lamented. At that time, Ningal, by Enki appointed, the boat toward the twin peaks of Arata directed. And there you go. There you go. Arata. They called Mount Ararat Arata. And Ningal is telling him, hey man, turn the boat. This is where you're going to go. So he didn't just happen to land on Arata. He had a spotter, in a sense, telling him, hey man, direct your boat over to the twin peaks of Arata. And if you go on Google Earth and you look at Mount Ararat, which is what it's called today, there are 2 mountains. Interesting. A sail for her he shaped. Toward the Mount of Salvation, the boat he guided. Again, now they're calling it the Mount of Salvation. Impatient Zudra was, birds that were on board he released, to check for dry land, for surviving vegetation, to verify he sent them. He sent forth a swallow, he sent forth a raven, both to the boat he returned. Again, a bird, if he ain't going to find dry land, it's going to go back to the last place it knows, where it won't drown. He sent forth a dove with a twig from a tree to the boat it returned. And there's your, that's a Masonic symbol as well. The dove with the twig in his mouth. I don't remember exactly what it is. It might even be a sprig of acacia, but I could be wrong. But that's you even see that in churches and stuff. Churches have the same symbol, the dove with the twig in his mouth. Now Zazudra knew that the dry land from under the waters had emerged. A few more days, the boat by rocks was arrested. I got stuck. The deluge is over, and the Mount of Salvation we are. So did Ningal to Zazudra say. Opening the watery hatch from the boat, Zazudra emerged. The sky was clear, the sun was shining, gentle wind was blowing. Hurried upon his spouse and children, and I apologize. This is I suck with words and all that stuff, and I'm terrible at reading. But this is written. First off, it's translated from Sumerian, which is a lost language, to English. And on top of that, I believe Zechariah Sitchin was Lithuanian. So sometimes the way he writes this book, or he wrote in this book, and I'm doing my best to ad-lib or fix things, but it's a tough read. It's hard with the language barriers. So let's try this again. Hurriedly, upon his spouse and children, he to come out called. Told her to get the hell out of the boat. Get out of the car. The Lord Enki let us praise, to him give thanks to them, Zizudra said. With his sons, stones he gathered. With them an altar he built. There you go. This is your Noah story. Then a fire on the altar he lit. With aromatic incense he made a fire. An ewe lamb, one without blemish, for a sacrifice he selected. There you go. This is your Noah story right here. Upon the altar to Enki, the ewe lamb, as a sacrifice he offered. At that time, Enlil from his celestial boat to Enki words conveyed. Let us in whirlwinds from the celestial boats upon the peak of Arata descend. So here come the gods. This is the more in-depth version of the Bible story. But this one, they're actually saying that the gods, Enlil and Enki, were descending on the Mount of Arata. Joseph Van Howe, you're too hard on yourself about reading. As long as I can understand in the end, who cares? It's a tough read, man. The way that some words I believe do not translate over from Sumerian to English. So I believe Zechariah Sitchin plugged in where he could to make it make sense in English. And on top of that, he also, like I said, he was Lithuanian, so he's not Russian, but same language. So you got three forms of language that are getting thrown around in this book here. So let's get back into this. The situation to review, what to be done is to determine. So Enki and Lil are going to land on Arata. We know that Zizudra and Ningal are both there because they landed in the boat, but now these guys are coming down. Nothing good can come out of this. While the others in the celestial boats to earth and circuit continued, Enlil and Enki in whirlwinds upon the peak of Arata descended. Smiling, the two brothers met with joy, their arms they locked. Then Enlil, by whiffs of fire and roasting meat, was puzzled. Again, remember, Enlil's the guy who wanted all humanity to go away. What is that? To his brother he shouted. Has anyone in the deluge survived? Let us go see. Meekly, to him Enki responded. So Enki is well aware that Zizudra's alive. But he's playing stupid. I don't know how they got there. In their whirlwinds, to the peak of Arata they flew over. To the other peak of Arata they flew over. The boat by Zizudra they saw. By the altar that he had built they landed. When Enlil, the survivor, saw Ningal among them, his fury no bounds had. He was pissed. Every earthling had to perish, he with fury shouted at Enki. With anger he lunged to kill his brother. With his bare hands he was ready. He is no mere mortal, my son, he is. Enki, that sounds like Yoda. He is no mere mortal, my son, he is. Enki, to Zizudra pointing, cried out. For a moment Enlil was hesitating. You broke your oath, at Enki he shouted. To a reed wall I spoke, not to Zizudra. You have to give credit to the balls of Enki right here. I didn't tell him. I told the wall of his friggin' house. I didn't say anything to him. Not for nothing. That would piss me off tenfold. I'd be pissed off that you told him, but I'd be more pissed off if he tried to beat around the bush and say, nah, I was talking to his wall. That would, whatever. Enki said, then to Enlil a dream vision related. He's talking about the dream vision of Galzu, who showed up and gave him the whatever for the boat. When the account of events they heard, Ninurta and Ninma, the account, were not angered. So they were happy. The two females who were, well, I think Ninurta is his son, but Ninma is his sister. And, again, they created mankind, in a sense. The survival of mankind, the will of the creator of all must be. So did Ninurta to his father say. Ninma, her necklace of crystals, a gift of Anu, touched and swore, on my oath, the annihilation of mankind shall never be repeated. Relenting, Enlil, by the hands of Zizudra and Amarza, his spouse, he took and blessed them thus: be fruitful and multiply, and the earth replenish. Flat out of the Bible. Be fruitful and multiply. Thus were the olden times ended. So this is the olden times. And now, basically what that means is they're going to rebuild. They're going to be done with the olden times. They're going to try to rebuild from what's left and start over again. But I just want to go back here on real quick, and I'm not done with the tablet yet, but God, Enki's got some balls. Basically, and thank God he did, because if this is a true account of things that we've forgotten as humans and mankind, he was basically responsible for us surviving in a sense. But right here, and this, I want to just say this to all the conspiracy theorists, or the people who are like, oh, the aliens are coming to kill us all, and Hollywood portrays this as every time there's an alien movie, the aliens are coming to destroy mankind. Says it right here. She says, on my oath, the annihilation of mankind shall never be repeated. So if aliens are coming, they're not coming to kick our ass. If these guys are really a thing and they come around every 3,600 years for one of their years, which is a shar, and whenever the hell the last time they were here, count it from there, do the math, figure it out in your head when they're coming. But they're not coming to wipe us out. The only thing that would probably cause us to be wiped out is if we did some dumb shit and we went attack them. And, well, I won't get into our current commander-in-chief. We'll skip right past that. But anyway, interesting flood story right there. Quite captivating. Let's get into now. This is the account of how the survival of Earth was restored. I'm going to take a quick wet my whistle because I'm doing a lot of reading here. And how a new source of gold and other earthlings beyond the oceans were found. Oh, shit. So it wasn't just Zidra who survived. Clearly there was others. It was after the encounter at Errata and the waters of the deluge to recede continued, and the face of earth gradually from under the waters was showing. The mountain lands were mostly unscathed, but the valleys under mud and silt were buried. Oh, shit. From the celestial boats, from the whirlwinds, the Anunnaki, the landscape surveyed. All that in the olden times in the Eden and the Abzu had existed under the mud was buried. So there you go, folks. Hold on, I want to read this real quick. Joseph Schultz. When the ark began to float, when the flood waters and the land, is it true that one of his children kept asking, are we there? Yeah, and my assumption is he probably threw him out of the freaking boat like us parents want to do every time we go 15 feet down the road. Yeah, I'm sure there was a kid going, like, are we there yet? Oh, that's funny. If we, Joseph Van Howe, if we were wiped out, would there be another fraternity like Freemasons? Probably wouldn't be called the same. That's an interesting thought. I would have to say that of those... are you talking about like complete humanity wipeout? Because if that's the case, then there ain't no damn fraternities. But if you're suggesting that there are going to be people survive and start over again, my belief is that of those, I mean, there's 6 million Masons around the world. 6 million of us. So my assumption is of those 6 million, a couple are going to survive, and I would hope would bring the tenets and the lessons of Freemasonry to the new times, if you will. Yeah, if we're gonna make reference to olden times, this is the olden times. If there's going to be a new times, my assumption is that Masonry would still be around. More likely history would repeat itself. Potentially. Unfortunately, I know we try to subdue our passions, but I mean. Mankind has a tendency of seeking power and trying to be the big man on campus, if you will, and that's just part of our nature as human beings, is to have an alpha, somebody to run it, somebody to control. It's just how it is. And again, understand, even if you want to believe this story, let's say we're going to go with this story. We're a part Anunnaki, but we're also animals. We're also, part ape, according to these guys. And if you think about it, I mean, even apes have alphas, and these Anunnaki are constantly fighting with each other anyway. So we got a little bit of both of it. Do all flood stories cover the same time period? I'm not 100% sure on that. I believe so. I mean, it's pretty much most religions go back to 10,000 years ago or whatever the case may be. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not down with all religions. I know a few of them, but I don't know if it's all the same time period, but I believe so. Let's try this. Let's start over. Sorry. So basically all that the olden times to Eden is gone. So for you archaeologists, your asses are going to have to dig, because if there's anything left to Eden or the Abzu, it's buried. Good luck. Eridu, Nibiru-Ki, Shurabak, Sapar were all gone, completely vanished. And this is actually true because I believe that Sapar was one of the cities that they found in Iraq that they were excavating, and then ISIS went and blew it up because they wanted to get rid of all that crap. And I believe that they packed thousands of pounds of TNT into where the dig site was and destroyed it. That's a true story. But I believe that, they had to dig into the ground, and it was buried. The majority of it was buried underground. It's a shame. But in the Cedar Mountains, the great stone platform in the sunlight glistened. And there you go. There's your Lebanon mega monolithic things where the Romans ended up building a temple to Apollo or whatever it was. But there's the big monolithic stones in Lebanon that I believe the terrorists are basically living on right now. But that survived. That platform survived. The landing place in the olden times established was still standing. Oh, the landing place. So it's still there. And we wonder how they got those big monolithic stones there. Where they come from. There you go. Also funny is you also have that other place up there in Turkey that they just uncovered that's 10,000 years old, but they recovered it because one stone was sticking on the ground, and now they're digging all the dirt out, and they're like, oh, maybe they covered it. Or maybe it got washed over in the flood, which is why it's in perfect, maybe that's why they did bury it. Maybe they did bury it to protect it from the flood. Moving on. One after another, the whirlwinds upon the platform landed. The platform was intact at the launch corner. The huge stone blocks held firm. Clearing debris and the branches away, the first to land in the chariots signaled. One after another, the celestial chariots came. Upon the platform, they touched down. Then to Marduk on Lamu, he's on Mars. Again, we talked about that. And Nanar on the moon. Oh, they were on the moon, excuse me, at this point. Then to Marduk and Lamu and Nanar on the moon words were sent, and they to earth returned. Upon the landing place they came down. Now the Anunnaki and the Igigi, who were thus gathered by Enlil to assembly, were called. The deluge we have survived, but the earth is devastated, so did Enlil to them say. All ways to recover we must access, be it on Earth, be it elsewhere. So basically they're saying, let's salvage what we can salvage, whether it's on Earth or elsewhere. We need this freaking gold. Lamu, by the passage of Nibiru, was devastated. So did Marduk relate. So he's talking about Mars now. Listen to this. Its atmosphere was sucked out, its waters therefore evaporated, and it is a place of dust storms it is. It's modern day Mars. The moon by itself cannot sustain. Only with eagle masks is staying enabled. So he's talking about you got to wear oxygen masks in a sense. So did Nanar to the others account give, and then to the words of Enamor he added. Once there, that it was Tiamat's host leader, one must recall. Of Earth a companion it is. With it, Earth's destiny is connected. Once there, it was Tiamat's host leader. One must recall it. Interesting. I'm not really picking up that, but continuing on. Lovingly, Enlil to his son's shoulders his arms put. With survival, we are now concerned. Because again, these guys can't go back to Nibiru. They can't go back to their home planet. Their bodies aren't used to their old planet anymore. And the same similar thing would happen to humans if we ever found a planet that we decide to habit, including Mars. You're going to get used to Mars's gravity. And I hope Elon Musk took this into consideration, because once you get used to Mars' gravity, which is substantially lighter than Earth's, you come here to Earth, and it's going to cause all kinds of health problems. So did Enlil to Nanar mildly retort, now sustenance is our first concern. Yeah, we need to friggin' eat. Let us the sealed creation chamber examine. Perchance Nibiru seed we shall find in it. So they had a creation chamber somewhere with seeds to build things. So did Enlil to Enki say of the grains once created, him reminding. At the side of the platform, clearing some mud, the shaft from times remote they found. Interesting, there's a shaft. Pretty cool. That's why astronauts have to do decompression chambers when they get back home. Yes, you're absolutely right, Brother Joe. Absolutely right. Same thing would happen. Now, mind you, these guys, their year is 3,600 years. 3,600 years to one of ours. So they live longer, which, you know, they last longer. So in a sense, they have a form of immortality. But now you come here to this spinning rock that's zipping around the sun, you know, at insane speeds. They age faster. So what you're basically going to have is that your body is just not going to be able to withstand going back to something you're not used to, and yeah, it'll eventually lead to them to death. They'll die. So let's see, get back into this. The stone that blocked it, they lifted off. So there's a shaft somewhere along the platform. I'd love to get into Lebanon and find that friggin' shaft that goes down into some sort of subterranean creation chamber where they keep seeds and shit. That would be freaking cool. Of course, you can't get there because I don't even remember the name of the terrorist group that's there. They're basically living there, so you can't go there as a terrorist either, or excuse me, as a tourist. The diorite chests with seals were fastened. The seals with copper key they made open. Inside the chests in the crystal vessels, the seeds of Nibiru grain were there. Once outside to Ninurta, Enlil the seeds gave. To him he was thus saying, go to the mountainside terrace. Let the grains of Nibiru once again bread provide. In the cedar mountains, on other mountains too, Ninurta waterfalls dammed. Terraces constructed. They're fixing shit. The eldest son, Zazudra, to raise crops he taught. To Ishkar, his youngest, Enlil another task assigned. Where the waters have receded, go and remaining fruit-bearing trees find. So yeah, they're looking for food and stuff. To him, as a fruit cultivator, Zazudra's youngest son was assigned. Here they go, using humans again to do all their dirty work, fuckers. The first fruit they found, a vine that by Ninma was brought. It was of its juice, as the Anunnaki's elixir renowned. Zazudra took a sip. By one sip and then another, Zazudra was overpowered like a drunkard. He fell asleep. Interesting. Wonder what the hell that was. A fruit that gets you drunk? Help me out here, guys. Maybe it's grapes. I don't know. Then a gift of Anunnaki and Earthling Enki presented. The chest that Ningal had carried he unveiled. Its surprising contents to all he announced. The life essences and life eggs in the wombs of the four-legged animals from Zazudra's boat can be combined. Sheep for wool and meat will multiply. Cattle for milk and hides we all have. So he's basically going to repopulate the earth. He's going to start. He's going to start repopulating the earth with the seeds that he saved. No different than what we do. We have cold chambers or whatever that have seeds. I think there's one in Norway. And is whiskey a fruit? Whiskey comes from potatoes, so I don't think so. And of its juice, as the Anunnaki elixir renowned, Zazudra took a sip. So I don't know. I'd love to know what this freaking elixir fruit though is. I'm gonna start drinking that shit all the time. Moving on to Demuzi, the shepherding tasks Enki gave, and the task was Zidra's middle son assisting. Then to the dark-hued landmass where his and his son's domains had been, Enki to his attention turned. To the dark-hued landmass. Dark-hued, it's dirt, because light-hued would be, or clay-hued would be, no. With Ningal, at the confluence of mighty waters, the mountains he dammed, fierce waterfalls to a lake he channeled, and let the waters as a lake accumulate. Then the lands between Abzu and the great sea with Marduk he surveyed. Between the Abzu and the great sea with Marduk he surveyed. So the great sea, my assumption is, if he's talking about Africa, we're talking about the Atlantic Ocean here. The lands between the Abzu and the Great Sea. He's talking about the Pacific. He's got to be talking about excuse me. He's going to be talking about the Americas, because the lands between the Abzu, Africa, and the Great Sea. The Great Sea would be the Pacific Ocean. So that would be the land. I mean, if I was a betting man, that's where I'm thinking he's going. He's in the Americas. Vodka comes from potatoes, not West. Oh yeah, Joseph Schultz. Let's see here. When habitations once were, the river valley how drained to be considered. At midstream, where the river's waters cascaded, an island from the waters he raised. In the bowels, twin caverns he carved out. Above them, from stones, sluices he fashioned. Wait a minute now. I don't know. If anybody's got any ideas, write it in the comments of where he's talking about, because now he's talking about islands popping up. And all I can think about is on Malta, where they have those stones. And that's what he's talking about here. There's some sort of an island where in the bowels, twin caverns he carved out. And you got that huge cavern that's on Malta. It's like an echo chamber or something like that. Thus, the flowing waters from the highlands coming, he could slow or let go faster with dams and sluices, and the two narrows, the waters he regulated. From the cavern island, the island of Abu, the river's serpentine valley from under the waters he raised. In the land of the two narrows, Gibraltar? Maybe. From Demuzi and the shepherds as habitation did Enki fashion. With satisfaction did Enlil to all the Nibiru words send. With words of concern, Nibiru responded. Of course they're concerned. Fuckers only care about their own planet. Moving on. The closed passage that Earth and Lamu effected on Nibiru too much damage caused. The shield of gold dust was torn. The atmosphere was dwindling again. Here we go. They're more concerned about themselves, not just the hell that the entire human population got the shit mashed out of it, but they're concerned about their planet. And you have to, I mean, come on now. This is humanity right here. This is the same crap we do here on planet. Like, some major thing happens, and it's like, at least it didn't happen here, right? Fervently to the Abzu, Enki went with Gibel, his son, to survey the search he journeyed. All the gold mines were gone, but the avalanche of water, they were buried. In the Eden, Bad Tabara, two no longer existed. Remember, Bad Tabara was the city that they melted the gold so that they can transport it. In Sapar, a place for chariots was no more. Sapar was a place where they took off and landed. To the hundreds of Anunnaki in the mines in Bad Tabara toiled from the earth were gone. The multitude of earthlings and primitive workers serving by the deluge were to clay turned. Yeah, all the humans died. No gold can from earth anymore be provided. So did Enlil and Enki to Nibiru announce. On earth and on Nibiru there was desperation. At that time, Ninurta, his tasks in the mountains of cedars completed, to the mountain land beyond the oceans once again journeyed. From that land, on the other side of the earth, astounding words he delivered. Interesting. So now he's definitely talking about the Americas here. Definitely. My assumption is going to be South America. The avalanche of water deep cuts into the mountainsides there tore from the mountainsides uncounted gold in nuggets, large and small, to the rivers below fell down. Without mining, the gold can be hauled. So because the flood happened, it ripped up the mountains and the gold fell up. And if I was a betting man, I'd say I'm about 90% positive he's talking about South America, probably around Chile and all that. Enlil and Enki to the distant mountain land hurried. With amazement, the discovery viewed. California, yeah, Joseph Van Hout, yeah, could be. Rocky Mountains could be California. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, it's absolute possibility. Gold, pure gold, refining and smelting not required. All about was lying. A miracle it is, so was Enki to Enlil saying. What by Nibiru was wrought, by Nibiru was amended. So basically what he's saying is Nibiru, yeah, went and fucked up Earth as it passed by and, caused all kinds of flooding. But on the flip side of it, though, because it did that, now it ripped open the side of mountains, and here's our gold right in our lap. Take another quick swig here, so I don't run out of talking lube. Now, who can collect the nuggets? How to Nibiru they could be sent? The leaders each others asked. Of the first question, Ninurta had the answer. In the highland mountain on the side of Earth, some earthlings have survived. Descendants of Cain, they are. And again, me and Joe talked about this in depth, I think, the last time I did this. And they said that Cain was banished, was sent to the other side of the earth. I believe this was also the case in the Bible. And I'm not 100% sure if it's in the Bible, but in the Sumerian stories, they altered Cain's DNA so that he could not grow facial hair. He's not allowed to have facial hair. And me and Joe surmised, and one of my assumption is that he's talking about Native Americans, because I do not believe Native Americans can grow facial hair. I don't believe they have facial hair. And now you have descendants of Cain on the other side of the earth, where Native Americans are. They are descendants of Cain, and with the handling of metals, they are knowing. 4 brothers and 4 sisters are their leaders. On rafts they themselves saved. Now their mountaintop in the midst of the great lake is an island. And again, interesting. Yeah, Joseph Van Hout, he says, I don't know about South America, but this sounds just like the gold rush. Yeah, it does. And he also said, I've never seen a native have facial hair, at least. No, I've never seen a Native American have facial hair unless they are some sort of a, if they have any other type of lineage in there. But a pure-blooded Native American, I believe, cannot grow facial hair, or does not grow facial hair. Write in the comments if you got proof otherwise. But I believe that, according to this story, the descendants of Cain, after he killed Abel, were banished over to the Americas, and that's how Native Americans got here. And as you can tell by the Incas and the Mayas, I mean, everything they had was freaking gold. They smelted gold. They made little idols and stuff. And it's interesting in their stories, even to this day, the Mayans that I do there, because there are Mayans that still practice and did survive, even though their society collapsed or whatever. One of the things they talked about is the white man, or a white god. The god was white. He was pure white, white male or whatever, coming back, and he was going to be there. He was going to come back to their society, and that's actually how the Spanish conquistadors tricked them into allowing them there, and basically decimated their entire civilization, because they believed that the Spaniards coming over here were their gods, and they didn't know any better. No, I believe Hispanic can grow facial hair. I think, actually, I'm not 100% sure on that. But I've seen Hispanic men with the moustache. Let's continue on here. So they're on their mountaintop in the midst of a great lake is an island. As the protector of their forefathers, they me did recall a great protector they call me. By the report, and it's interesting because that's actually what they called, I believe, the god they were waiting for to come back was the great protector. By the report, the other earthlings had survived. The leaders were heartened. Even Enlil, who the end of all flesh planned, was no longer angered. Yeah, son of this, I'm telling you, this is where you get your duality of gods. You have your Enki, who was, it's all right, man. You know, I'm a good God. I'm a just God. I'm a compassionate God. I'm a loving God. And then you got this son of a bitch. And Lil's, kill them all. Whatever. It is the will of the creator of all to each other, they said. That the descendants of Cain were there. And this is where you get your everything happens for a reason. And also... again, they talk about the creator of all. So even to them, you know, this book that I'm reading here for the religious zealots that I talk to on a regular basis when they decide to spam the comment section of my videos, if you actually listen to this, they're saying that they believe in God too. They're saying that there's a creator of all. So this does not discount that there's a God. So when people ask me, like, how could you believe in this stuff, or how could you read this stuff and believe it, you know, being a Mason? Well, right here, creator of all. So it does not interrupt my Masonic beliefs. Now let us to the new place celestial chariots establish. Therefrom the gold to Nibiru sends. So now in this new land, I believe South America, they're going to establish a new place for chariots and again, Joseph Van Howell, I'm going to get into why I believe it's South America coming up, and I'm trying not to do spoiler alerts, but this is why I believe it. Because they're going to build a new place for celestial chariots in a mountainous region that has gold. From the new plain whose soil has dried and hardened, they searched. In the proximity of the landing place, in a desolate peninsula, such a plain they found. Flat as quiet lake it was, by white mountains it was surrounded. Now this is the account of the new place of the celestial chariots, and the artificed twin mounts, on how the image of the lion by Marduk was usurped. Okay. So now I'm going to make clear that this story's ended because they put a little break in the book here. So that story's ended, and now we're moving on to another area, the place of the celestial chariots. So they're building a place of the celestial chariots over in what I believe is South America, and now we're flipping over to the other side of over by the Middle East and all that stuff. And how the image of the lion by Marduk was usurped. We'll get into that in a minute. In the peninsula, by the Anunnaki chosen, the heavenly ways of Anu and Enlil on earth were reflected. So let the new place of the chariots precisely on that boundary be located. Let the earth of the plane of the heavens reflect. So did Enlil to Enki suggest. Once Enki to this agreed, Enlil from the skies took distance measures. So he's measuring out. So they need, in a sense, some sort of a runway or a guidance system as to how to land on Earth is basically what they're doing. So I guess, I mean, when you think of rockets or spaceships, as they go up in the air and they go straight up. Well, that's not true. They don't go straight up. They actually, if you ever watch when a spaceship takes off or goes into space, it actually goes up and then it curves and it starts to actually go on an angle almost parallel to the Earth and its atmosphere. The same theory is in place when a spaceship comes back into the Earth. It's got to come and kind of follow the Earth and ever slightly kind of angle down onto Earth. And the reason being is because the atmosphere is thick for Earth. So when a spaceship comes in, if it comes in too rapidly, it'll just burn up, go right up. Two, if they come in too shallow, it'll actually skip off the atmosphere and bounce off like a rock. So that's pretty much what they're doing. They're setting up they're measuring distances to have some sort of in effect a space runway, in a sense, to come into the atmosphere. And we got a little bit left, and I was going to do 11, but this is a long ass chapter. So let's wrap this up. We're going to get a little bit longer. We're going to finish up. I got 3 pages left, and then you guys can hit it up in the comments if you got anything else you want to add or thoughts you have. And you can do it while I'm reading as well. So let's see here. Where did I leave off? Oh, on a tablet, a grand design for all to see, he marked out. Let the landing place in the Cedar Mountains be part of the facilities. The distance between the landing place and the chariot place he measured. So one place is a landing place, one place is a chariot place. Interesting. My assumption is chariots you're going to be your inside the atmosphere ships, and your landing place is going to be your rocket ships to get off. No different than we have airports and we have the space station or the space launch places. In the midst thereof, a place for a new mission control center he designated. There a suitable mount he selected. The Mount of Way Showing, he named it. The Mount of Way Showing. Joe's mic is coming loose. The Mount of Way Showing, he named it. Anybody want to take a guess of what you think this is? Well, mind you, you got the landing place in Lebanon, and they're looking for another place to go, so it's going to be somewhere nearby, and obviously it's going to be a straight shot. So if anybody wants to take a guess as to where he's talking about, this mount that they're going to build up stones, and this is going to be another smaller landing place. A platform of stones, akin but smaller than the landing place, to be built he ordered. In the midst, a great rock was carved inside and out. Come on. I want somebody in the comments to pick up on what they're doing here. To house a new bond, heaven, earth, it was made. A new navel of the earth. The role of Nibiru before the deluge to replace. The landing path on the twin peaks of Arata in the north were anchored. To demarcate the landing corridor, so this is a landing corridor, and Lil, 2 other sets of twin peaks required. So now he's saying, so we got the twin peaks of Arata, but now we need 2 other twin peaks. To delimit the landing corridor's boundary, ascend and descend secure. So in other words, he wants to make sure that there's a distance made between 2 peaks of mountains and 2 peaks of somewhere else, so that we can gauge when to take off and land and altitudes and all that stuff. Makes sense. In the southern part of the desolate peninsula, a place of mountains, twin adjoining peaks, and Lil selected. On them, the southern delimit he anchored. Where the second set of twin peaks was required, mountains, there were none. Only a flatland above the watery clogged valley from the ground protruded. Artificial peaks thereon we can raise, so did Ningazida to the leader say. Anybody want to take a guess on 2 mountains that are artificial peaks in a flat area? Anybody want to take a guess? On a tablet, the image of smooth-sided skyward rising peaks for them he drew. If it can be done, so let it so be. And Lil with approval said, let them also as beacons serve. On the flatland above the river's valley, Ningazida a scale model built. The rising angles and 4 smooth sides with it he perfected. Next to it, a larger peak he placed, its sides to Earth's 4 corners he set. Come on, guys, killing me in the comments here. I want somebody to pick this out. I know exactly what he's talking about, but I want you to guess at it. By the Anunnaki, with their tools of power, were its stones cut and erected. Beside it, in a precise location, the peak that was its twin he placed. With galleries and chambers for pulsating crystals, he designed it. When this artful peak to the heavens rose to place upon the capstone, the leaders were invited. So they're having the capstone unveiling, or whatever you want to call it, of electrum, an admixture by Gibble fashioned. Pyramid of Giza. Bang. Absolutely right. The Great Pyramids. And it's interesting that if you take, and this is a little side note, and it's actually in one of the other books I have. I'll have to find the book. It's one of the other ones, and it's actually by Zechariah Sitchin's wife who wrote the book. But there's an image that they show a map, and you can actually take a line, and you can draw a ruler, and you can draw basically a straight line from the peaks of Arata straight down to the pyramids of Giza, and Jerusalem lands right in between it. And that is the other mount that he was talking about doing a landing place. Jerusalem. Heaven and earth bound. Bingo. Jerusalem. Navel of the earth. It's the place, the heaven and earth bond. It still is to this day. Every major religion has stake in the Temple Mount. That was the landing place. Let's continue. Where did I leave off here? Here we go. The sunlight to the horizon reflected by night. Remember, going back on talking about the pyramids of Giza, understand they didn't look like what they look like now. They were covered in limestone. They were shiny as shit. And apparently they had some sort of a capstone on top, which I'm sure either they took when they hauled ass out of here, or people melted it down and stole it or do whatever the hell they did with it. It was made of electrum. I don't know what the hell electrum is. But anyway, let's continue. The sunlight to the horizon, it reflected by night like a pillar of fire it was. The power of all the crystals to the heavens, it beamed, it focused. So it shot beams into space. It shot light beams into space. When the artful works by Ningazi the designed were completed and ready, the Anunnaki leaders, the great twin peak entered. At what they saw, they marveled. Enkur, house which like a mountain is, they named it. So the Pyramid of Giza is called Enkur. Ekur, excuse me. Ekur, Ekur. A beacon to the heavens it was. That the Anunnaki, the deluge survived and prevailed forever, it proclaimed. Now the new place of the celestial chariots, gold from across the seas can receive. From it, the chariots to Nibiru, the gold for survival shall carry. From it to the east, where the sun on the designated day rises, they will ascend. So that's why it was all. That's why it was all basically aligned to Earth perfectly. Still is to this day. Well, I don't know, because I think earthquakes move the Earth's axis a degree or something like that. But whatever the case may be, it lines up with the four corners of the Earth in a sense. And this is why, because they were using it as a navigational beacon. So I hate to, in this case, I hate to inform all of my Egyptian friends, the ones who are into Egyptian mythology, and that it was a burial place. Interesting thing that they call that the Great Pyramid of Giza was a burial place because they never found a body in it. They found sarcophagus, never found bodies. And yeah, you could say, oh, somebody stole it. Yeah, sure. But there was never any gold found in it. There was never any, and actually that there's chambers dug underneath. It's actually one of the I'm not a big Ancient Aliens guy, but one of the episodes that when they talked about is that the Great Pyramid being a power source, and check it out. It definitely opens your eyes to things. Let's move back. That the Anunnaki, the deluge, survived and prevailed forever, it proclaimed. So it was basically a dick monument, if you will. Pardon my French, but that's what they're saying. Iker, house which like a mountain is, they named it, a beacon to the heavens it was. That the Anunnaki, the deluge, survived and prevailed forever, it proclaimed. Now the new place of the celestial chariots, gold from across the sea can receive. From it, the chariots to Nibiru, the gold for survive shall carry. From it to the east, where the sun on the designated day rises, they will ascend. And yeah, this is basically a navigational beacon. Then Enlil, by his own hand, the Nibiru crystals activated. Inside, eerie lights began to flicker. The enchanting hum and stillness broke. Outside, the capstone all at once was shining. Brighter than the sun it was. The multitude of assembled Anunnaki a great cry of joy uttered. Ninmah, by the occasion moved, a poem recited and sang. House that is like a mountain, house with a pointed peak. For heaven and earth it is equipped, the handiwork of the Anunnaki it is. House bright and dark, house of heaven and earth, for the celestial boats it was put together, by the Anunnaki built. House those interior with reddish light of heaven glows, the pulsating beam that far and high reaches it emits. This is a song that she's apparently singing. Lofty mountains of mountains, great and lofty fashioned. Beyond the understandings of earthlings it is. No shit, even to this day. House of equipment, a lofty house of eternity. Its foundations, stones, and waters touch. And that's true, because there's water underneath the Great Pyramid. Its great circumference in clay is set. House whose parts are skillfully together woven. The great ones who in the sky circle to a resting make descent. House that for the rocket ships is a landing mark with unfathomable insides. By Anunnaki himself is the Eker blessed. By Anu himself is the Eker blessed. Thus did Ninmah at the celebration recite and sing. So they actually, on a clay tablet, had that whole freaking song on a tablet. While the Anunnaki, their remarkable handiwork, were celebrating, Enki to Enlil words of suggestion said, when in future days will be asked, when and by whom had this marvel been fashioned? Let us beside Twin Peaks a monument create, the age of the lion let it announce. What are we talking about here, folks? The Sphinx. The image of Ninkazita, the peak's designer, let its face be. Let it precisely toward the place of celestial God's gaze. Boom. There you go. When by whom and the purpose let it to future generations reveal. So did Enki to Enlil suggest. To the words Enlil consent and to Enki said, of the place of the celestial chariots, Utu must again the commander be. Let the gazing lion precisely eastward facing with Ninkazita's image be. So they're going to basically put Ninkazita's face on this lion. When the work to cut and shape the lion from the bedrock was proceeding, Marduk to his father Enki words a grieving said, to dominate the whole earth to me you did promise. Now command and glory to the others granted. There's Marduk getting a pissing contest again. Without task or dominion I am left. In my erstwhile domain are the artifice mounts situated. On the lion, the image of mine must be. So Marduk's on my face on a lion. Real quick, I'm just going to read the comments back here. Joseph Schultz. So since the Anunnaki never came back, did their planet die off or due to the lack of gold? Just trying to understand the purpose of their presence. I read the Sphinx originally headline said. So let's go. I'm going to tackle this one by one. So in this book, it basically, I'm going to address the first question. So since the Anunnaki never came back, so here's the thing. The ones that were here, they had to stay here. And they did age, and they aged much quicker. So yes, they have immortality on Nibiru, but here on Earth they didn't have more immortality. So Marduk, which is actually a Babylonian god, I believe in the ancient Babylon stories, he did die. He went away. So my assumption is that the Anunnaki who were here and were bound to this Earth, they did die. Nibiru, and it talks about how they cannot come back to Earth until Nibiru gets close to Earth, gets closer to Earth, because they just can't travel that far because you're fighting all the net gravities, all the different planets. I don't know. Again, I'm not a freaking scientist, nor am I an astrologer, but they talk about it in this book that they had to wait. They had the comings and goings. It was plus or minus, I believe it was 50 years for them to actually get close enough that they could make the trip to Earth. And again, it comes every 3,600 years. I mean, if you think about it, we don't know what the hell happened 3,600 years ago. We're still guessing as to what happened 3,600 years ago. So, sorry about that. My assumption is that the ones that could get out, got out, went back to Nibiru. They may have very well gotten the gold they needed to fix their atmosphere. Or maybe they're going to come back again and say, hey, we need more gold, which is why humans are big into gold. You got gold rings, gold earrings. Every Karen you know got gold rings, gold earrings. Yeah. So my point being is that what's to say they ain't going to come back? They may have gotten what they needed, or, flip side of it, maybe they were dealing with the humans and the humans got pissy. They were clearly outnumbering them, and maybe we rebelled. I don't know. It's an interesting question, though. The purpose of their presence, they want the gold. And again, it's not the gold you're thinking of. I believe that the gold that they're talking about is called mitochondrial gold, and it's actually a powder. They grind it up, they powder it up, and we use gold on spaceships. I believe it's inside of their heat shields. So if you really think about it, if you had a hole in your atmosphere and you pumped it into the atmosphere, and it was able to just kind of be in the atmosphere, it would patch a hole, in a sense. The Sphinx originally had a lion's head, and see, here's just the thing, though. It may have had originally, and this is the way I'm kind of gathering here, because you're seeing Marduk getting pissed off at Ninkazita because he's getting aggravated that Ninkazita is going to have his face on the lion, and Marduk's getting pissed off about it. I've read this book before. I don't remember everything that happens, but you're going to see a fight between Ninkazita and Marduk, and they're going to battle it out. And at some point, I don't know if it's initially, but eventually Marduk wins. So my assumption is Marduk said, F this guy, and unchiseled or made a smaller version of his face over Ninkazita's, if I had to guess. That's probably where we're going with this. But let's continue, because I'm almost done with this chapter. I got like another page, and then we're going to cut it off. And then we'll get into tablet 11 another time. But by these words of Marduk, Ninkazita was angered, and the other sons were also annoyed. So everyone's getting pissed off Marduk. Like, dude, shut up. He's that kid. He's the middle child. By the clamor for domains, Ninurta and his brothers were also aroused. Lands for themselves, and devoted earthlings, everyone was demanding. So they're all getting pissed. We want our own freaking land. We want our own earthlings. Let not the celebration a contest become, Ninma, leave it to a woman to say, guys, calm down. Amidst the raised voices shouted, the earth is still in havoc. We Anunnaki are few. Of the earthlings, there are only survivors. Let Marduk and Ninkazita of the honor not deprived. Let Marduk, Ninkazita of the honor not deprive. Let us Marduk's words also heed. In other words, she's saying, let's not deprive Ninkazita of this, but let's not forget what Marduk is saying. So did Ninma the peacemaker to the contending leader say, for peace to prevail, the habitable lands between us should be apart set. Here's where you're getting your concept of nations. Enlil to Enki said, everybody wants to be propped up and the leader of their own friggin' land. This is why we have nations on Earth. It's clan versus clan. It's leader versus leader. These are your nations right here. To make the peninsula an uncontested divider, they agreed. To peacemaker Ninma, they allotted it. So Ninma was the original female who got Egypt, in a sense. Tilmun, the land of the missiles, they named it. To earthlings, it was beyond bounds. So earthlings were not allowed to be here. For the descendants of two sons, Zazudra, unless I'm wrong, make the peninsula. Maybe they're talking about the Gaianai, not the Gaianai, the Gaza Strip. Not Gaza. Is it Gaza? Sinai Peninsula. That's what I'm thinking. The Sinai Peninsula. Maybe that's what they're talking about. Maybe because they were talking about the image of Ninkazita, the piece design. He's talking about the lion facing eastward toward. Interesting. Well, that changes the whole story about Sinai. Interesting. The land of the missiles. Let's continue though. For the descendants of the two sons, the Zidra, Shem, and Japhet, therein to dwell. This is the habitable lands to the east thereof, to Enlil his offspring, so the land of the east they were given to him. The dark-hued landmass that the Abzu included to Enki and his clan, so Enki's taken Africa. The people of the Zidra's middle son, Ham, to inhabit were also chosen. To make Marduk their lord of their lands and master, Enki appeased his son suggested. So he's by your wish let it so be. Enlil to Enki about it said. In Tulam, in this mountainous south, the abode for Ninmah is Mother Ninurta built. Yeah, so that's what it is. The southern part of the Sinai Peninsula is mountainous, so she's taking it. Near the spring with date trees, a verdant valley, it was located. The mountain peak Ninurta terraced, a fragrant garden for Ninmah he planted. Yeah, he's talking about Sinai, Mount Sinai. When all was thus completed, a signal to all the outposts on earth was given. From the mountain lands across the ocean, whirlwinds the gold nuggets brought. So they're taking the gold from wherever in America, bringing it over there, and starting the whole damn shit show up again. From the place of the celestial chariots to Nibiru, the gold was lofted. On that memorable day, Enlil and Enki to each other said and agreed, let us, Ninmah, the peacemaker, with a new Ephet name honor, Ninurtsag, mistress of the mountainhead, let us name her. So they're giving Ninmah a new name, Ninurtsag. By acclamation was Ninmah the honor given. Henceforth, Ninurtsag she was called. Praise to Ninurtsag, the earth, the peacemaker. In unison, Anunnaki proclaimed. And that is the end of the 10th tablet. So I'm going to read the synopsis of the 11th tablet just for the hell of it. And if you guys got anything in the comments that you want to pay attention to, or you're going to add to this, interesting stuff. But synopsis of the 11th tablet. We're going to get into this next time we do the tablet of the Lost Book of Enki. The spaceport's land, Tilim, is declared a neutral zone. Again, Sinai. It is granted to Ninmah, who is renamed Ninurtsag. Marduk gets the Dark Lands, the Enlilites, the Olden Lands. Marduk's grandson Quarrel. Satu murders Asar, impregnating herself. Asar's wife Asta bears Huron. In aerial battles over Tilim, Huron vanquishes Satu. The Enlilites deemed it prudent to prepare another spaceport. Enki's son Dumuzi and Inanna, I believe this is a story of Samson and Delilah, but I could be wrong. Enlil's granddaughter fall in love. Fearing the consequences, Marduk causes Dumuzi's death. Seeking his body, Inanna is put to death and resurrected. Oh, interesting. Inanna launches a war to seize and punish Marduk. The Enlilites break into his hideaway in the Great Mount. They seal the uppermost chamber to entomb Marduk alive. Marduk's wife Serapent and his son Nabu plead for his life. Ningazida, knowing the mountain secrets, reaches Marduk. Marduk, his life spared, goes into exile. Enki and Enlil divide the earth among their sons, like I said. Anyway, interesting stuff. I'm glad you guys all tuned in. I hope you enjoy this. I'm going to continue doing this because I think it's very important to go over this. And I think it's a lot of fun. Definitely expands your mind and definitely makes you think. Makes you recount religion just a smidge. Thank you, Worship Brother Joe Schultz. Try my best. It's interesting to me. I thought you guys would think it's interesting as well. And until next time, I'm going to sign off and get the hell out of here. So, for the Freemasons podcast, thank you for joining me for this special As soon as I'm done with all of my Department of Homeland training and all that stuff, and when Joe's done with his marathon, we're going to get right back into it. So, but in the meantime, if I can come up here and do Lost Book of Enki, or we even cover something, or we could do a comments episode where you guys all just pop into the comments and just start firing questions off. I'm all for it. So, but anyway, that being said, for the Freemason Podcast, I'm Right Worship Brother George Mudry, signing off. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.